Boxing Ego Spence Crawford weigh-in reaction. Let's go. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. First, I want to start off by saying a huge thank you. Thank you, Al Heyman. Thank you, PPC. Thank you, Steven Espinoza and Showtime for making this event. This is actually one of them ones, and I will explain. Spence Crawford feels like everything it is. Great promotion. There was a mutual respect at the weigh-in, even the shaking of hands, but it was kind of cool and dope. Instead of like pushing each other, spitting at each other, anything like that, you could tell it's still about to be on later tonight. I want to give my thoughts. Congrats to Errol Spence, Terence Crawford as well, for giving us boxing fans this energy and something to talk about, and something that the fans can talk about for years to come. So that being said, reaction time. Terence Crawford, let's start with him. Terence Crawford, he looked shredded. Like, you see clear definition, and he almost, at times in certain angles, some people would even say he almost looked massier or bigger than Errol Spence, which I personally do not like for Crawford, and I will explain in this video. Moving on to Errol Spence Jr. I think Errol Spence Jr., he definitely looked like he arrived at his weight cut in the safest and most efficient way possible. Errol Spence is a multi-million-dollar fighter. So is Crawford. I think the difference being Errol has a multi-million-dollar team. So he pulled out all the stops, didn't cut any corners, has a nutritionist, and I think that has paid dividends for Errol Spence Jr. throughout his career. Listen, Errol Spence has told you for years that making weight is not the easiest thing at 47. He's fighting around this. I mean, I've used this example before, but it's probably the best example that I've heard anyone use in the boxing game. So when it comes to boxing, these guys, some of these guys, Errol is 33 years old. He's been making this weight probably since he was about 17, 18, or whenever he was in the Olympics. So that's analogous to whatever you weighed in high school, write the number. Whatever you weighed in high school, we'll say maybe a sophomore or junior year. So think about being a sophomore or junior and whatever you weighed in high school. Imagine 10, 12, 15 years later, and you still weigh the same exact amount that you weighed in high school. And not like some of the people who are just freakishly skinny, but like you're in shape, you have muscles, and as you developed and finished puberty as a man, you're still weighing what you weighed in high school. It's pretty hard to do. That's why it's called a weight cut. Through Derek James and Errol Spence and pieces of his team, they have all but confirmed that most likely this is Errol Spence's last hurrah in his weight class, because again, as you mature, ultimately your body changes. Natural production of certain things like testosterone and your metabolism begin to slow. You produce less testosterone, et cetera, et cetera. Even in women, you know, a woman, I'm not going to say infertile, but as time goes on, you know, that's why some women trip about having a baby if they haven't had a baby and they're a certain age, because they have a biological clock. So the later you wait, if you're like 60 years old and you're having a child for the first time, there could be some immense complications, even with the baby, right? So everybody's body changes. That's the whole point I'm making. Everybody's body will change over time, and that happens. So I think Errol Spence, he really came down to the weight. He landed on 147 flat, and they did a morning weigh-in. So the weigh-in that you guys seen in the public was there, and Mike Tyson, hi, I'm Mike Tyson. Watch my fight with Peter McNeely on Cox Cable. Yeah, watch me on DirectTV. I'm going to fight him. I'm mean. I'm hungry. I'm an agile guy. I'm not a textbook fight. I fight to win, totally to win. So that particular weigh-in was a show weigh-in. It's a for-show weigh-in. The weights were already made. Errol Spence came in at 147 flat. So to me, what that stipulates is Errol Spence's team definitely had a game plan, and their game plan landed. It's just like a plane landing. Landed them on the landing strip perfectly. He got 147 flat. Now, I would be concerned if it was like the Mikey Garcia fight. Mikey Garcia fight, Errol Spence looked a lot skinnier, and if you understand his story and what he said, you would understand why. He said for the Mikey Garcia and Porter fights, he was ballooning up to 180, 190 pounds. So he said he stayed in the sauna for 2 hours the morning of the weigh-in. And that's why he came in lighter and looked pretty skinnier. I was at the fight. So those days are past Errol Spence Jr., and he no longer has to do those things. Again, hiring the nutritionist, even going through the accident, I think this has definitely shaped Errol Spence for the better and made him a more disciplined monster. So to me, Errol Spence looked to be in the better shape. I know to the eye test, and again, to people who don't have a keen eye for boxing, they may see Crawford, who just looks completely shredded, and take that as being more dialed in for boxing. But to me, I don't know if Crawford, it looked like his cut was harder. And I've made several videos about that. He was on the Mike Tyson podcast, so he was sweating profusely in a studio, AC environment. So he was doing an interview with Mike Tyson in the studio, which has AC, and he was sweating profusely. Errol Spence was on the same podcast, and it didn't look like he was sweating profusely. So what does that indicate? To me, that indicates that Terence Crawford was still doing his weight cut, and he still has pounds probably to shave, and that's why he was looking ghastly and gaunt to me. Because when you're doing weight cut, you have to almost flush your system, and you drink a lot of water. You drink a ton of water, flush your system out, and you're going to lose a lot of water weight. And then when you couple that with work, hard immense work, or saunas, or being on the treadmill, or wearing the sauna suit and stuff like that, you're going to dry out. That's why you're able to see guys like in the UFC, they do some crazy weight cuts. Like Alex Pereira, he right now is like 228 the day after he just weighed in, and he was like 205, right? And he was fighting at middleweight. So I don't even know how, based on his frame and stuff, I don't even see how he was making middleweight, but he was crunching his body down to that. So that's a whole nother video. I don't want to get too deep into the cut, but maybe another video. So bottom line, Crawford was sweating. His face looked thinner. I'd never seen Crawford before a fight during fight week, grand arrivals and stuff, wearing a black hoodie in triple degree weather, wearing a t-shirt under that. It looked like he was still in his cut, basically. And his face, I'd never seen his face look like that on fight week. I've made videos. Check out part 1, 2, and 3 of those videos talking about the weight cut. So again, to me, it looks like Crawford, his team's notion to kind of bulk up and make Crawford more muscular, I don't know if that really helps him here, because Errol Spence's weight cut almost appeared easier, which is strange because Terence Crawford is the guy who started at 135, moved to 140, became undisputed, and is in his third weight class. So I really didn't imagine or picture that Crawford would be the one out of all, especially since I watched his whole career, that seemingly had more issues with his weight cut. Again, people may disagree, and they're going to say, oh, Errol Spence, his weight cut was equally bad. But I don't agree with that. The reason being is I know for a fact, and Errol has told you, that he started his weight cut at 190 and had to get back to 47. So I know for a fact Errol did not enter this training camp the heaviest that he's been. That was before the accident. He told you out his own mouth he was like 190. He said it on several podcasts. So whatever he started this particular fight. He had all hands on deck. He has a nutritionist, and he knew he only wanted to fight Terence Crawford. So I think he was just slowly but surely just kind of maintaining his weight the whole time, and it showed on that scale. Again, to the untrained eye, they're looking at Terence Crawford as like super dialed and shredded, but that could have been just because your body was dehydrated and then you're flattened out because you had a harder weight cut, which is exactly what I said. And then when you start to eat and you carb up and you put some liquids and fluids and Pedialytes and waters back into your body, yeah, you're going to swell back up because your body was emaciated. Your body was at almost like a detrimental weight. You know what I mean? You like had a hard cut. Like, just imagine this, and I'll leave you guys with this. Imagine if, like one of those movies like The Gray, and a plane crashed and you're in the wilderness trying to survive with wolves, and you have to do that for a week. You finally get rescued. Some helicopter comes and rescues you, and you've been eating nuts and pause, but you've been eating whatever you could find in the wilderness, right? and then they take you to get some substantial food in you, some real food in you, because you're no longer stranded in the wilderness. Or Tom Hanks in Castaway, where he's on the island. So when you finally get saved, yeah, your body is gonna be like, oh, finally, salvation. We got some food in us. You see what I'm saying? So that's, to me, why Crawford looked like that. I still think the same thing. I think his weight cut was hard. Can he perform tonight with the rehydration now that he's, bounced back? I guess we're going to find that out. But none of my thoughts from the past change. Errol Spence still look like the more natural welterweight. Again, people are marveled by Crawford looking shredded and, having six-pack and looking like he had more definition. But boxing is not a bodybuilding contest. So it's not really about being the most vascular. It's not like you're trying to look good on stage for Mr. Olympia, so you need all the cuts. And this is what I said before they even weighed in, and I'm double downing on that. In terms of Errol Spence, his weight was going to fall where his weight was going to fall, and they targeted 147 pounds, and they didn't really worry about the body. And I think in boxing, that is definitely important. You shouldn't really worry about how you look. It should be more about how you feel, making your weight, and how you can perform. So to me, Errol looked like a cyborg. He looked extremely big as a welterweight, but he was starting to nourish back up and replenish and things like that. And he still looked like the more stacked, despite Terence Crawford bulking up and things like that. The other thing with the bulk up, it doesn't really change your chin or your durability. If anything, there could be some adverse effects for Crawford if the things he's known for, like agility, mobility, or whatever people are saying gives him the chance to win, athleticism. If you bulking up has slowed you down in any way, then that plays into Errol Spence's hands. Big fight. These are just my opinions. We will see tonight. I told you, I think Errol Spence wins it here. I've given several videos and live streams explaining why. The weigh-in, they both look like they were focused and trained hard in the camp. But to me, like I've been saying, I think Errol Spence, he looked like he didn't have like manufactured muscles or play muscles. That's what we call them where I'm from, for show muscles. He didn't have muscles for show. He looked like he just looked more solid, like a solid unit. Like, just think of a tree. If you see a tree with the large base and then you have a little axe and you have to chop down this tree, and this is a big oak tree and the base is just like thick, then you're gonna be like, man, that's gonna be some work to chop that down. No chainsaw. I'm talking about with the axe. But then you look at another tree and the tree is like taller or this and that, and it just looks skinnier. It's like a longleaf pine tree. So it's still a tree, but it's more kind of like a Christmas tree or something like that. I would rather have to chop down the longleaf pine tree over the big oak tree. And to me, that's kind of the analogy that I give. Both guys look to be, from the eye test, in shape, but seeing Crawford's cut, seeing that this is kind of the biggest he started his camp, and seeing that he just ballooned back up with muscles, I don't know that really does him any solids in this fight. But again, we'll see tonight. Best in the business, and I'm out.